What's up, people? This is the Believe in Saints podcast presented by FanDuel. I am Mario Jerez, Spanish play-by-play voice of the Saints, native New Orleanian. She is my co-host, Erin Summers, veteran reporter covering the Saints and the NFL as a whole. Erin, saw you got some well-deserved R&R in the last week. Good to see you again. How are you?
I am doing great. It was really good to get away. I took a little trip to Aruba. Ironically, I saw Carl Granderson in the airport in Aruba. He was getting there as I was leaving. So everybody is at that point in the season right now. The off season has truly started and people are getting their last vacays before the season starts. So it was a great vacation, although I did have to work because we did a podcast. Thanks to you, Mario. No, I'm kidding. We interviewed Phil Simms, and it was a great listen, great conversation. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure you do. And I don't know, seems like things are going to get interesting with that Saints Giants game coming up because we're definitely going to duke it out with him about quarterbacks and everything like that going into that game week.
Yeah, we had to. Sorry to pull you off the beach with your girls there, but not many people can say they interviewed Phil Simms from Aruba, but my co-host can. So cool little nugget, I guess, here on Believe in Saints. And if you haven't checked out that conversation, definitely encourage you to. A great dialogue about Tyler Shuck, Jackson Dart, the little quasi rivalry that's been born between the Giants fan base and the Saints fan base. And it was definitely a really, really fun conversation. And for what
Mhm.
it's worth, Aaron, we had a great kind of month-long run of guests in June between Emery Hunt breaking down the draft, John Stitchcomb telling stories about the 2009
Mhm.
Saints team, Stan Verrett talking about covering that same team on ESPN during that run. Like that was a
Yeah.
really, really good stretch there that we had in Believe in Saints. And you have a kind of a month and a half left of the offseason to go check all that out. So definitely encourage the audience to do that. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've had some great guests, and I know it's gonna continue as we're ramping back up to the season. There's still a ton to talk about, and I think people are finally starting to talk about this Saints team as they're realizing all of the pieces that have been added over the offseason through free agency, the draft. I don't know, I think offensively for sure, they've added a lot of firepower for Tyler Shuck to work with.
For sure. And we got some position battles going in the training camp. We'll talk about that as we go here on the show.
Mhm.
But as far as today's episode, do want to talk a little bit about the Saints run game. What's the ceiling? What's the floor? Will Alvin Kamara even be a part of it? We'll talk about that here on Believe in Saints. Also, can Kellen Moore win Coach of the Year in
Ooh,
2026? Our friends at FanDuel seem to think so. So we'll talk about that on the show here today. And also, this is a good July 7th topic here, Aaron, but can the 2026 Saints be the next 2020-25 or let's try that again. Can the 2026 Saints be the next 2025 New England Patriots? A few parallels there. Young
okay.
coach, young quarterback, up and coming defense. Definitely want to talk about that towards the end of the show. But to start here, this is the time of year, Aaron, where we see a lot of rankings, we
Yep.
see a lot of lists, and that creates a lot of dialogue on shows like this. And ESPN, it's interesting because they actually go around and interview anonymous executives, coaches, scouts that are part of these NFL teams, and that's what they're basing the voting off of. So, legitimate sample here about ESPN, in my opinion. And if you
Mhm.
look at the running back rankings that they let out, and they'll continue to release these lists on their website. They got edge rushers coming up later this week, defensive tackles, tight ends before the end of this week. But they started these rankings with running backs, and no real beef with this list here, Aaron. They got
Yeah.
Bijan at number one, Jamar Gibbs number two, Saquon Barkley at three, and Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor rounding out the top five. I did see that Alvin Kamara and Travis Achan both got some votes to be on
Mhm.
this list. And I think in future years, Travis Achan can be on lists like this. I think he's going to the Saints to try to find a little bit more stability. Just had a lot of different play callers, head coaches, stuff like that with the Jaguars. So I think in due time he can be here. But right now, I don't think he really deserves to be on this list, quite frankly. There's a whole lot going on with Alvin Kamara right now. So I was surprised, honestly, to see that he got any votes. But other than that, not much beef with this list that ESPN put out. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the list. I mean, it's obvious. Bijan Robinson, 2,298 scrimmage yards in 2025 alone. That is a franchise record for the Falcons. It's unfortunate that that is an opponent that the Saints have to see twice because it's difficult to stop him. And the way that he not only is effective on the ground, but in the pass game as well. 820 yards on 79 catches last year. So he can do a little bit of everything. And I think that's what the Saints are looking for in Travis Achan. It's what they liked about Alvin Kamara and his ability to do multiple things. And they need somebody that's going to be a true number one back. Unfortunately, we've seen AK's numbers decline over the past few seasons. He had a career low in yardage last year, although he was injured. But I mean, he's been injured quite often. He's actually missed 13 games over the last 3 years. So the best ability is availability, right? That's what they always say. And you got to be available. That is something that Travis Achan has been able to do. I will say, although I don't have a problem with him not being on the list this year, for the Saints to have the season that they would like to have, he has to be on the list next year. He
Well
has
said.
got to definitely be one of the best backs. I think there is the opportunity for him to do so. He's definitely going to be the Saints' number one back. And when you look at hopefully winning the division, you're going to throw out possibly winning the whole conference here in a little bit. So if that's going to happen, yeah, he's got to be on that list next year.
And think about him signing here for a second, Aaron. From the Jaguars' point of view, I saw a lot of Jacksonville fans kind of upset that they let him go
Mhm.
because he has been so good for them, and they're coming off such a good season with Liam Cohen there in his first year. And then from Travis's point of view, like I said, I think he wants to come here to number one be the guy, and the Saints are
Mhm.
telling him he is that with what they're paying him, right? But also for some stability to develop with a young quarterback like Chris Olave or like Tyler Shuck, I should say. And he did like playing with T Law over there in
Mhm.
Jacksonville, but just a lot of instability with different play callers, different skill guys, underachieving, overachieving. I think just the stability of being here and putting up 1,000 yard seasons at the 1,000 yard seasons, that was the vision for Travis Achan coming here. And looking at his odds in FanDuel, Aaron, his over under for rush yards this year, I think it's a little bit low, even if you do factor in Alvin Kamara coming back and playing a role. Our friends at FanDuel right now have him at over 800.5 yards at
Mhm.
minus 114 odds, and the same for under. So minus 114 for over 800 and a half. You need 801 for it to hit, and minus 114 odds for under 800 and a half for Travis Achan. And based on Kellen Moore's words, based on his production so far, I believe it's 4 1,000 yard seasons in 5 years in the NFL, with the one anomaly being Tank Bigsby having a big year in Jacksonville. But
Mhm.
I think if Travis Achan stays healthy, he definitely hits that number at 800. So I would think that's a good play. And I'm with you. I think he's going to have a big year in New Orleans.
Yeah, yeah, it was 3 1,000-yard seasons on the ground alone in 4 years. This is going into his 5th year this year. So he's definitely somebody that has the ability and has shown that consistently, as you mentioned, that 1 year being the anomaly. But what also stands out to me, and this is huge in terms of his effectiveness and production for the Saints, is last year he had his most touchdowns that he's ever had. He had 7 rushing touchdowns and 6 receiving. So again, you don't exactly know what you're going to get from him from a defensive standpoint. You can't be sure that he's going to get you on the ground versus the air. So that's huge to have that versatility. 13 total touchdowns. AK only had one last year, one total. So that makes me very excited about the potential for the Saints run game this upcoming season.
Yeah, it needs to come along. And I heard you on WWL with Mike D and those guys talking about some of the
Mhm.
rushes he had last year being longer than some of the runs the Saints have had in the last like 4 or 5 seasons. So the explosiveness, the big playability is one thing. But I think a big reason why so many fans are excited about the upcoming season is just all the weapons or all the options you could
Yeah.
potentially have on offense. I mean, you have a proven running back in Achan, you have a proven wide receiver in Chris Olave with multiple 1,000 yard seasons, and you have a quarterback that you feel can distribute the ball and let all of them eat. So just on paper, the Saints staying healthy, it seems like they're going to have the most explosive offense they've had in a long time. And apart from that, more importantly, it seems like it's something that's sustainable, Aaron, that can really grow into something special in the next few seasons.
Yeah, I mean, the team's young still as far as their offensive weapons go. And I think it really does all start, though, with the offensive line. A healthy Eric McCoy is going to be key. And I know he's been frustrated with the injuries that he's had, but he is so important for this team. He does so much in terms of just organizing everybody on the field and calling out what he's seeing defensively and telling people where to be. And then adding David Edwards, who is another vet there on the line to hold things down. It's been a position that not been able to really count on for a little bit here. Had a couple different players in and out of that left guard position. So I think that the upgrades on the line there are going to be huge as well. And obviously, the two tackles have done great and they're young. So if we can hold on to both of those for a while and they can continue to improve, then I think the line is really going to set the tone.
I agree. I'm with you. I think when it comes to cornerback and offensive line, I like what the Saints have starting wise, like their first couple of guys, but the depth is definitely a question mark, especially with the O
Mhm.
line. Like going around the NFL, I don't know if you'll find many starting units better than what the Saints have with their first five. With McCoy and now the
Yeah.
addition of David Edwards, Ruiz has been a liability at times, but still somebody with experience. And then, as you mentioned, the two tackles, up and coming guys in Fuaga and Kelvin Banks. So the run game really going to be the key to the season, I think, this year, Aaron. If they're able to get it going, establish and play action, I really think this is going to be one of the better offenses in the league.
Yeah, and I think that it's obvious that the Saints saw that as a need to improve based off of numbers last year, but even the moves that they made, bolstering the offensive line, bringing in Travis Achan, helping with the run game. It again, it makes you wonder about Alvin Kamara and his status here with the Saints. And recently, an article by Mo Moton and Bleacher Report, he said that Alvin Kamara was the most overpaid running back in the league. AK is making 11.5 million, which is tied for ninth among running backs this upcoming season. It's a lot. And in his career, the totality of his career, he has done a lot and he is deserving of being in the top 10, I think, pay wise. But if you look at it as what have you done for me lately and what we're expecting from you next year, he's going to be 30. He missed, like I mentioned, 13 games the last 3 years. His last Pro Bowl was in 2021. So I don't know. I mean, you could argue that he might be somebody who's making a little bit more than he should based on the numbers of late.
Yeah, it looks like it's a situation where the money doesn't really match the production just based off of last year. But obviously, he earned that contract, like you said, because of past seasons. Last year, I believe, was his first season without 1,000 scrimmage yards in the
Mhm.
NFL, and obviously, injuries played a factor. And I think had he been healthy down the stretch of the season, he probably plays in some more games, and those stats probably look better. But this has become just a really unorthodox situation, Aaron, because the critiques are fair. All the stats that you said are very valid. And as we've said all offseason up to this day, I think the Saints are still evaluating Alvin Kamara's role in the offense on the team. And I've said on the past in this show that I'm pretty sure he has a spot solidified. But kind of looking into it, thinking about it a little bit more, I don't really think that's the case, Aaron. I think he might really have to
Mm.
show himself and prove something at training camp because the Saints seem to think that there might still be some kind of financial benefit to letting Alvin Kamara go, even this late in the offseason. And honestly, I don't really see that.
Yeah.
Maybe we need like a salary person or a free agency specialist person to come on and tell us how at this point in the offseason that could still be beneficial to the Saints. But all of that's really fair. He is getting up there in age. He had a bad season last year to his standards and going into the season. And then when the season starts, I think Alvin Kamara, despite being a legend with the Saints, despite all that he's done, has plenty to prove in 2026.
And that's what happened with Cam Jordan and the Saints going into this season. Although Cam is much later on in his career, he had a ton of production. So it's kind of the opposite. He's much older, but was very productive last year. And it's the balance between age and production and how much they're willing to pay you. So Alvin Kamara, not as productive last season, not quite as old, but in running back terms, it's getting up there for sure. Do you offer a pay cut and say, hey, can we come to terms on a number that makes sense for us based off of where we feel like you are and have been if you want to still stay with the team? And can they come to terms on what that is? Of course, you're never going to want to give money back to somebody. I mean, you're telling me
Yeah.
you're going to pay me 11.5 million. Like, let's go. Especially as somebody who's used to it. Like if you want to tell me instead of 11 and a half, I'm going to give you 5, I'd be like, cool, whatever. It's a million of something. Like I'll take it. But for them, I get it. It's, you know, they don't get to play or work for their entire, lives. So they got to maximize when they can. I don't know if that's going to be what happens before the season starts. Are we going to see AK in a Saints jersey, but is it going to be for less money?
Yeah, and I'm surprised. It's a weird situation because the team does seem to be frustrated with them, and this is totally me speculating. I'm not in those meetings. I don't know, but there's been a lot said about Dennis Allen's firing. Did Alvin Kamara help to maybe play a part in that? And then the financials. Based on the
Mhm.
production, they seem to be just being really critical of him this offseason in the media and based on his status with the team from the team on Airline Drive as well. So I don't pretend to be a scout or a player evaluator, Aaron, but I've said all off season. I still definitely think he's the second best guy in that room, and I don't think it's particularly very close. Travis Etienne's the guy; he should
Mhm.
get the majority of the carries. But if you're asking me, I still way prefer Alvin Kamara over Devin Neal. Kendre Miller showed some serious explosiveness when he's been
Yeah,
healthy, but he's not nearly
right.
on Kamara's level either. So even if it's in a way reduced role, he's going for like 300 to 500 rush yards this season. I still think the Saints are much better with him on the team, and they should figure the financial part of it out.
Yeah, and you look at the depth that you're talking about it on the offensive line, but there are bodies there, but the first 2, 3 that you're talking about have been injured for a vast majority of their season. Kendre Miller or their careers, Kendre Miller, Devin Neal was injured last year in his first year. So how much can you rely on them and how much do you really even know about them? You know what Alvin can be when he's at his best. You know he's going to come in tip-top shape. You know he understands the offense and what he needs to do. He understands defenses. He's seen everything in the NFL at this point. Is he somebody that benefits you as a leader and a voice in the locker room? He does have say, he does have pull. I mean, that's what happens when you get to a certain age in your career and you've produced. Same with Cam Jordan, same with what Demario Davis was. And whether or not he was responsible for Dennis Allen's firing, I'm sure he had some sort of opinion on it. And I'm sure it was voiced. And regardless of that was the tipping point or not, I understand that. I think that you have to listen to those leaders and the voices that the players in the room trust, and he's definitely one of them.
And it's also a weird situation where he's away from the team. That's always kind of been the case, but the coaching staff's been like, you should respect us a little bit more, maybe be here. So that might play a part of it as well. But like I said, I definitely still think the Saints are better with Alvin Kamara on the team.
Mm.
And the run game, I think, will definitely be better with Travis Achan being in the black and gold. That being said, going to the defensive side of the football for a second here, Aaron. ESPN did this same list, with cornerbacks. They interviewed some of the executives, coaches, scouts,
Yeah.
and much like with the running backs, I didn't have much beef with this, but I was a little bit surprised to see that Kool-Aid McKinstry got some votes to be a top 10 cornerback, and
Dang, Mario, you're not even giving him any credit. You're
given who
surprised he even got voted?
yeah, no, I mean, honestly, no, Aaron. Given the dialogue around him, like I know he is the Saints' number one cornerback, and he's going into the season as such. But I was a little bit surprised to see that the opinion of his peers are that
Yeah.
high. But I guess definitely a good thing for the Saints.
Yeah, it's huge for the Saints that people are noticing him, but it might just be the fact that they looked at everyone's depth charts and they're like, "Okay, this is their number 1 corner on the team," and so, yeah, I've seen him play, and I saw him often, maybe it was a division opponent, and they had a tough time against him. Kool-Aid has to be that guy this year. He has to. This is, I think, my most concerning part of the concerning position group is just the backfield in general because you're putting a lot on Kool-Aid McKinstry and Quincy Riley to be those lockdown corners in the league. And then you have a guy that's completely changing positions in Jonas Sanker on the inside. And this is another thing. You let Alante Taylor go, who also received some votes, not in the top 10, but he is also on that Bleacher Report list as the most overpaid cornerback in the
And
league. So
Bleacher
that might
Report hates this apparently.
but I think for Alante, like, he is now top 5 paid corner in the league, and he was good. I don't know if he's that. I think that the Titans are hoping that he is. So I don't think it was a bad decision to let him go if that's the kind of money that he is asking for and can get elsewhere. But yeah, you better be sure of what you have in your cornerback room right now, not picking anybody else up in free agency and not drafting somebody high in the draft in that position.
Yeah, it's totally an economical play at that position. It's slot corner. It's kind of like, being a little kid asking your mom for McDonald's and your mom being like, we got food at home. We have Jonas
Mhm.
Anchor at home, much cheaper option, rookie contract. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the strategy there. But with the young corners, I'd rather Aaron go into these seasons with young corners being developed in house, kind of taking their lumps, than spending a lot of money on like a Brandon Brown or a recycled cornerback. So I think that both of those players that you mentioned, Kool-Aid and Quincy Riley in his rookie season,
Mhm.
have both taken their lumps. They've had to watch some tough film, but with both of those guys, even just last season, they both got a lot better as the season went on. And you saw with Brandon Staley calling his defense, he was a lot more aggressive towards the end of the year, bringing blitzes and kind of trusting those guys to be on an
Mhm.
island. Now, I think the key for them, Aaron, and for the entire secondary is the health of the two safeties. Justin Reed, who had some complimentary words about Cam Jordan, and Justin Blackman, who was injured early on last season. If both of those guys stay healthy as veteran safeties, as guys that can do all they can do, that's going to help the young players so much. It's going to help them be more comfortable. They'll be able to take more chances, hopefully make some big plays, force some more turnovers. And the health of the veteran guys, I think, will be huge for the success of the young guys in the Saints secondary.
Yeah, it's another position where we're talking about depth. Ideally, no one ever gets hurt, but that's not gonna happen. It's just not no team is exactly what they were on day 1 of the season at the end of the season, and you have to be able to find people that will step up, and right now, I'm confident in the ones in every position pretty much. I'm just unsure of a couple positions depth-wise, and you mentioned it, I the backfield is one of those position groups for sure.
Yeah, you made me feel a little guilty, like I'm being mean to Kool-Aid. I just didn't think he'd be voted as one of the top 10 in the league, but this is a player that, like I said, he's gotten a lot better, and you try to not put too much stock in college tape, Aaron. Sometimes it just doesn't translate, especially at certain positions, but he was so good at Alabama, and I can't
Mhm.
get out of my head the fact that he was one of the last players that Nick Saban ever coached. So
Yeah.
that instruction combined with what he's gotten in the NFL so far, hopefully it could be a good year for Kool-Aid McKinstry. And that'd be good for us on the Spanish broadcast as well. Because when he make big plays, sometimes I'll say Kool-Aid McKinstry. Oh yeah. So hoping for a lot of oh yeahs on the Spanish broadcast this year.
Oh, I love that. That he is such a fun personality too. He plays with a lot of fire, and that was something that Alontae Taylor talked about last year was that they were really good at basically equalizing each other out. You know, if somebody gets too hot and you can see it, they play with fire, they get chippy and chirpy, and they're good about leveling each other out and keeping each other on point. So is Kool-Aid ready to take over that role and be the leader of the cornerbacks of the secondary? I think Justin Reed is probably gonna be the overall leader of the secondary, um, but cornerbacks are a little more feisty, and who is gonna be the one to keep them in check there?
Kool-Aid does love to talk. You can describe him as feisty. I don't know if that's how to describe Saints head coach Kellen Moore, Aaron, but a lot of
Mm-mm.
fans in New Orleans really excited about him nonetheless. And our friends at FanDuel seem to think that he has a pretty good chance at winning NFL Coach of the Year in 2026 because when you look at the odds, as of now, the betting favorite, maybe you wouldn't think this, but it's John Harbaugh, the new Giants head coach, former Ravens
Hmm.
head coach, up there at plus 650 odds, just over 6 to 1 to win NFL Coach of the Year. Behind him is Jesse Minter, who's going into his first season as the Baltimore Ravens head coach. And then the third shortest odds, Aaron, a tie between two NFC South coaches, Kevin Stefanski at plus 1,400 odds, 14 to 1 to win NFL Coach of the Year. And then Kellen Moore, head coach of your New Orleans Saints, has the same odds, 14 to 1, the third shortest to win NFL Coach of the Year. And you could see here, Aaron, that there's a common theme. A lot of these coaches are first year coaches trying to turn around a bad situation. But Kellen,
Mhm.
it's interesting because he's the one guy that's coming back. And he's the one guy that still has the same quarterback from last season. So if you're just looking at these odds, just trying to apply some common sense 14-1 for Kellen Moore to win, and the Saints have a good season and win the South. He has a really good chance to win it. I don't think that's a bad play. I think that 14-1 for Kellen Moore, just given the Saints situation right now and given the continuity that he has compared to some of these other coaches, I don't think that's a bad play.
Well, I am pulling up my FanDuel app as soon as we get off of this podcast, and I'm going to place that bet for the future coach of the year in Kellen Moore. You made a good point. He already comes in with some continuity with his staff being there for a year. So going into his second year, he has that advantage over some of those other names. And then the quarterback situation, what they've added. But the other thing is all of these teams, they were bad last year. They weren't great. And I think the Saints, had things gone differently, had they potentially started the season with Tyler Shuck, had they not had so many injuries, they wouldn't have been or ended up with the record that they did. So I think that there is potential for them to really make some headway in terms of at least getting to 500, better than 500 this year, and potentially, as you mentioned, winning the NFC South and maybe more.
Yeah, and that means something to me, Aaron. And I've worked in sports betting a lot. I used to have a sports betting show. These guys are wrong sometimes. Like the handicappers aren't perfect, but I think they're a little bit more grounded than like some of these ESPN lists and stuff like that. They're a little bit more objective. So the fact that,
Mhm.
that FanDuel and some other sports book think this highly of Kellen Moore, that makes me think that some of the optimism around him specifically, it's not all flush. It's not all fluff. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not all sunshine pumping by the Who Dat Nation. Like a lot of people around the NFL are taking note of what the Saints did last year, and they're
Mhm.
thinking they can build on it now this season.
Yeah, he's clearly a very respected coach with what he was able to do with the Eagles, leading them offensively, uh, from I think they started with 3 straight losses, or 3 out of the first 4 games of the season were losses the year that they went on to win the Super Bowl. So he was able to change some things around there and win the Super Bowl kind of behind Saquon Barkley and turn that run game around into a complete powerhouse towards the end of the season. So yeah, he has a lot of potential to make some major headway with the Saints offense from year 1 to year 2.
So Kellen Moore, not much of a long shot to win NFL Coach of the Year. The Saints are a much bigger long shot to win the NFC and go to the Super Bowl this year. Right now at FanDuel, the Saints are listed at plus 3,500 to win the NFC. And I bring that up, Aaron, because last season, or last all season, I should say, in 2025, this very time of year, the New England Patriots carried plus 3,000 odds to win the AFC. So compare that
Okay.
to the Saints.
Similar.
Yeah, 35-1 for the Saints, 30-1 odds for the Patriots this time last year. And we all know what happened in 2025 with New England. They went to the Super Bowl. It was Mike Vrabel's first year as head coach. It was Drake May's second year in the NFL as their starting quarterback. And I'm trying my best to make this apples to apples here, Aaron. I'm trying to see if the Saints in 2026 can maybe replicate what the Pats did in 2025. They also had a really good coordinator, right? Josh McDaniels,
Mhm.
who wasn't as good as a head coach. You can maybe apply that to the Saints as well with Brandon Staley. So if you're looking for more pie in the sky, if you're looking for a little bit more of a sprinkle to just give the Saints a little bit more interest when you're
Yeah.
watching the season, this is one that's not as good of a play. This is honestly, objectively speaking, a little pie in the sky, but it's not impossible. Who Dat Nation? We saw the Patriots do it last season, so maybe a plus 3,500, the Saints could replicate a little bit of that in 2026.
Hey, they say any given Sunday, and if you have a couple where you catch somebody, then you never know. You could end up winning the NFC, the entire thing, which would be insane because what has it been 5 years since they won the NFC South?
Oh, 2020, yeah, 5 seasons.
Even and haven't been in the postseason? So I think that's our first goal is just getting into the postseason. But yeah, pie in the sky. Let's go. Let's go ahead and win the whole conference.
At 35-1 odds, why not? And going from worst to first in the division would be one thing, but to even make the NFC Championship game, my goodness, it would be parallel to what the Patriots did last year. And one thing on a somewhat serious note, what the Patriots did have going for them last year was a very doable schedule. And looking at what the
Mhm.
Saints have, I might sound stupid in a couple months, but right now on July 7th, that seems like a pretty navigatable schedule. So
Yeah.
if the Saints can just make it in, maybe win the division, win a game or two, who knows? Who knows? That's all I'm saying.
Hey, I am all about positivity right now. We haven't seen them really in pads. We don't know exactly what things are going to look like, so might as well be positive at this point.
Yes, the name of the show is Believe in Saints, so we may as well. And I think this is a pretty good lane to wrap up here, Aaron.
Yeah.
Unless you have any final thoughts. Like I said, I think the thing with Alvin Kamara is definitely ongoing. I think there are some questions to be answered, but I really hope they do agree to a pay cut, whatever they had to do. I really hope that
Mhm.
they do keep him on the team, just because I think Travis Etienne would lead the backfield, but the combination of those two guys is something I really want to see. I really hope it
Mhm.
comes to fruition.
Well, I would say that if I missed half the podcast that we did, then I think that I wouldn't be deserving of my full paycheck at the end, and you might be able to take a little bit more from me. So, apples to apples, hopefully AK looks at it the same.
Hopefully so. Thanks for all your work today, Aaron. Good having you back.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. It's always fun chatting with you, and I hope everyone is enjoying the podcast. Of course, you can always find us on social media. Send us your thoughts, stuff you want us to talk about, guests you want us to try to get. Like, we're open to all of it. So definitely hit us up.
Appreciate all the interaction. Please continue to subscribe. Please continue to like our stuff. And I want to say thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcast. For Aaron Summers, I am Mario Jerez. This has been the Believe in Saints podcast presented by FanDuel. We'll talk to y'all soon. Who dat?